Good evening, I'm Soraya Mia and you are watching AWANI Tonight. Is Malaysia ready to lift mask mandates? And will the anti-party hopping bill prevent another Sheraton Move? That's coming up. Certain micro-mobility vehicles like mopeds and electric scooters are banned from being used on roads. Transport Minister Datuk Seri Wee Ka Siong said this ban had been gazetted under the road traffic rules and was in effect since December 17. The ban also covers personal mobility devices with internal combustion engines or propelled by human power, as well as personal mobility aids.
And we have instructed the JPJ together with PDRM to take immediate action. I think we have to inform the public. The Gazette is ready. We have gazetted, in fact, end of last year. But we take some time to give all this illustration so that they understand and we can immediately take action. And of course, initially, if the parents they are not aware, then advokasi dululah. Tapi kalau dah sehari dua ni nampak dia kalau mereka masih mencabar, then they have no choice. Kita kena ambil tindakan di bawah Akta Pengangkutan Jalan 1987.
He explained that the public can use these devices, but they cannot use it on public roads, where these vehicles will mix with other motor vehicles and put everyone at risk.
It depends on where. Resort, no issue. That's within your compound. But the public road you cannot. Bagi nak pakai tak ada isu. Tapi jangan bagi dia naik jalan kita. That's it. So the key word is percampuran traffic.
On the use of bicycles, we said that although its use on roads is allowed, it would have to abide by regulations under the Road Transport Act and road traffic rules. Singapore's Court of Appeal has dismissed the criminal motion brought by Nagendran K. Dharmalingam's mother in a last-minute plea to save her son from the gallows. The decision seals the fate of the 34-year-old Malaysian, who is scheduled to be executed tomorrow. Nagendran's mother filed a final legal challenge in Singapore's Court of Appeal yesterday after her son's death sentence was upheld by the same court last month. Nagendran, who is mentally impaired, has been on death row for more than a decade for trafficking about 42.7 grams of heroin into Singapore. He was scheduled to be hanged in November last year, but the verdict sparked international attention and widespread criticism due to concerns of his intellectual disabilities. Meanwhile, the United Nations Human Rights Office has called on the Singaporean authorities to consider granting him clemency and reducing his sentence to prison terms. UN human rights spokesperson Ravina Shamdasani said there was an alarming acceleration in execution notices in Singapore, citing that more than 50 people are reported to be on death row. Ravina also urged the Singapore government to stop the execution and grant clemency to another Malaysian, Dachina Murti Kataya, which is scheduled to be executed on April 29th. As Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin is expected to announce the relaxation of COVID-19 curbs tomorrow, are masks one of them? We speak to public health specialist, Professor Dr. Sharifah Izzat, for her insights on relaxing COVID restrictions, including mask mandates and testing upon arrival.
In many countries, once they go into so-called the endemic phase, most of them will relax the SOP as us, and I think they will start with the relaxing of masks, wearing masks outdoors. The risk is that if you wear masks, especially outdoors, the risk is very low to contract COVID because of the good air, ventilation, and so forth. But if you're in a very tight space, example, a small room and with a lot of people, so the risk is still there. I still actually would advise to still wear masks indoors, but of course you can relax it outdoors.
Sharifah believes travel-free testing upon arrival in the country should remain because of the possibility of importing newer variants.
I still think that this needs to continue, Soraya, because a lot of countries that you know the problem of vaccine inequality, meaning that there's a lot of countries that has not had a good coverage of vaccine, for COVID. And with these countries, there's a lot of issues that you might actually bring back the virus, and the virus might actually be spread in locally if you bring it in. So this is why you still need to test to make sure that you don't bring the virus in. Example, in China, they're still having lockdowns and a lot of major cases there. So you can just imagine if you have 10, let's say, travelers coming in with positive cases, of course, a lot of our population are covered. So basically we are protected, but there's always going to be new strains and new viruses.
She also added that PCR testing requirements should stay, but the price should be lowered. There is high expectation that an anti-party hopping bill will prevent elected reps from switching political parties. But according to political scientist Professor Wong Chin-Huat, the proposed bill does not necessarily solve the problem of party hopping, or even a bigger problem, the possibility of another Sheraton Move.
Given the current anti-hopping law proposal, if we have a replace of the Sheraton Move, Bersatu would not be punished because Bersatu leave PH en bloc. So its coalition hopping is not party hopping. However, Bersatu MPs like Tun Mahathir, Masli, Syed Sadiq, and 3 others from Bersatu, who are now in Pejuang, they would have to face by-elections because they either were sacked by the party or they left the party in disagreement of Bersatu exit from PH.
He said the law would work in straightforward situations, such as when MPs switch political parties. He urged for recall elections instead, as a fairer solution to party hopping, where voters are the ones to determine the fate of MPs or parties through by-elections.
Then you may ask and say, why don't we simply just expand the traditional anti-hopping law to cover coalition hopping? The answer is, a party then may be expelled by other members, other parties of the coalition. And therefore, this party would have to face by-elections, and this wouldn't be fair. So at the end of the day, we have to recognize that you have a very straightforward situations. You can allow the law to automatically vacate the seats of those MPs involved. But when you have situations that are more complicated, when the MP is sacked by the party, or entire parties leave a coalition or get expelled from a coalition, then you need to let the voters to make the decision.
We'll take a quick break. Stay with us.
Kita sering menyangka rumah kita tentunya bersih, namun debu-debu yang tersembunyi tetap ada. Dyson V12 Detect Slim dengan teknologi laser pengesan debu memerangkap zarah yang tidak boleh dilihat dengan mata kasar. Kuasa sedotan menyesuaikan diri secara automatik dan penapisan keseluruhan mesin memerangkap habuk halus, membersihkan tempat yang sukar dicapai dan memberikan anda bukti saintifik. Beraya di rumah yang lebih bersih bersama Dyson. Nikmati pelan ansuran faedah 0% dari Dyson.
Insan yang berjaya juga insan seperti kita. Didorong keazaman demi mencapai cita-cita mereka. Super. Melengkapkan juadah anda.
Welcome back. Billionaire Elon Musk reaches a deal to acquire Twitter after his offer to purchase the company for $44 billion was accepted by the company's board. The outspoken Tesla CEO wanted to own and privatize the social media platform and improvise it to be a space for free speech.
Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal said in a release that he is deeply proud with the team and inspired by the work that they are carrying out. Musk also took to Twitter after the official announcement, choosing to highlight a portion of his statement that focuses on the freedom of speech. This ended weeks-long saga that Musk kicked off when he disclosed a large stake in the company. Soon after, the company said he will join the board, only for Musk to reverse course on that plan several days later. Then, he offered to buy the company at $54.20 per share, which he described as his best and final offer.
In other news, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is set to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow today. This comes after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned of the threat of World War III. But Ukraine said Moscow is just trying to scare the world off of supporting Ukraine. Guterres is expected to discuss with Putin for a potential exit strategy for civilians trapped in Mariupol. Up to 1,000 civilians are stranded in a steel factory alongside the Ukrainian military, as previous efforts for a humanitarian corridor have failed. Guterres said he will meet separately with Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky this week. He is facing criticism from Ukraine for not visiting Kiev first and for failing to intervene decisively before Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th. In other news, Beijing launched a mass COVID testing for nearly all of its 21 million residents. Fears are growing that the Chinese capital may be placed under a strict lockdown like Shanghai. Health authorities ordered testing in 10 of 17 districts to find and isolate cases after admitting that the highly transmissible Omicron variant had spread undetected for a week. The testing orders sparked panic buying from Sunday night. State media tried to reassure the public that there were plentiful supplies. Residents fear a repeat of the sudden lockdown in Shanghai, where people have struggled to obtain food and medical care. China's stringent rules to curb COVID-19 fueled concerns that a Beijing lockdown will unleash another wave of chaos on global supply chains already strained by the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Shanghai, a major port and business center, has been under strict lockdown for roughly a month. Nearly a third of goods leaving the port of Shanghai are held up due to strict restrictions. Now, Indonesia is prepared to widen its ban on exports of refined palm olein if it faces domestic shortages of derivatives. The world's top palm oil producer announced the export ban last week, until further notice, in a move to tackle rising domestic prices. The country plans to halt shipments of refined, bleached, and deodorized or RBD palm olein, but will allow exports of crude palm oil or other derivatives from tomorrow. According to analysts, RBD palm olein accounts for around 40% of Indonesia's total exports of palm oil products. This means the export ban could significantly affect its export earnings. Authorities will strictly monitor domestic supply of refined palm oil and crude palm oil used as raw materials to make RBD olein. The announcement spiked global edible oil prices, with supplies already choked by drought and shortages from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Labor practices in Malaysia have long been under scrutiny, but might the MOU on Indonesian domestic workers set a benchmark in Malaysia's foreign labor market? We discuss this with our guest tonight on Consider This. Now that's all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news updates from astroawani.com and the Astro AWANI app. I'm Soraya Mia. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again.
Seorang pemandu lori dijatuhkan hukuman penjara 15 tahun dan 8